So Lynn is the athletic director at Chestnut Hill College. We were approached by Chestnut Hill to consider use of the A field for the fall sprint football season. And Ms. Tubman and myself and our director of public services, Ray Sokolowski, met with Lynn and the head coach of the sprint football team. The arrangement that has been proposed is that Chestnut Hill would have use of the A field from August through November. They would be paying at the hourly rate that is currently set for the use of the A field. Their schedule was attached in your supporting materials in your meeting binder. They would be looking for approximately 75 hours of use, which would total approximately $15,000 in revenue from the A field itself. They would be practicing on the weekdays. They would change their games to Friday evenings to accommodate for our youth football organization and other uses that are already previously scheduled. Their crowds are approximately 150 individuals. They have not exceeded 300 individuals to date, so we're not talking about a large-scale inconvenience to our residents in terms of parking and police enforcement. The Director of Security for Chestnut Hill will be reaching out to our Chief of Police as well to determine if a police presence is required. They would provide a certificate of insurance, and depending on the relationship in the fall, we could potentially look for additional relationship in the future. And lastly, in terms of maintenance, which was one of our main concerns, we discussed contracting with Chiron Environmental to work in conjunction with our Public Services Department to supplement needs, since our Public Services Department has so many other areas of responsibilities. So Ms. Tubman is here tonight should you have any questions. It will be on your agenda for consideration on the 19th for a formal vote. But again, any questions can be directed towards Lynn. I'm sure she'll be happy to answer them.
Yes, and can I make just 2 points of clarification? So the season's August 28th, really, the end of August to November, I think the first Friday in November. It's sprint football. A lot of people have never heard of it. It's a weight limit football. The men can't be more than 178 pounds. So it is something that a lot of people are unfamiliar with. And it's a short and condensed season. There's only 4 home games. They have no spring practices. They don't return to school for preseason. It's financially conducive for a small college to have sprint football. And we play Penn University, Army, Navy, Cornell, and then there's some other similar Division II schools that are in the Sprint Football League. And the other point is we currently, our baseball team has been at Latchall McCarthy Field in Norristown Borough for 7 years, and we contract Chiron to help supplement their public works group, that whatever work they cannot provide, we hire Chiron to come in to make sure the field is maintained.
Any questions?
Yeah, they're going to be using the snack bar, the facilities?
Yes. Yes, we would be interested in selling tickets for admissions, using the concession stand and the locker room facilities for games and practices. And most likely at practices, we would probably just take 2 school buses to the A field, and then the men would probably go back to campus to shower, but they would just use it to change if they needed to.
Thank you.
We did also discuss, since it is a commercial facility and a commercial concession stand, that there's regulations in terms of what they can and cannot do. And they were okay with that. That's correct.
Yeah. I don't have any questions based on what we just reviewed with staffing, field prep, insurance. I don't have any questions because all of what I have been answered.
Anybody else have any questions?
This would be your home field?
Correct, yes. We currently use a campus practice field and have leased PW Stadium, but in the past, it was PW, LaSalle, St. Joe's Prep, and sometimes Roman who would get scheduling prior to us. So a home field would be advantageous.
Thank you. No question.
Okay.
Okay,
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, Lynn.
You're welcome, thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks. Next item on the agenda is considering 106 West 11th Avenue zoning hearing board application. Ms. Stetler, if you can come to the podium.
Thank you. This is a fairly simple application. This is a residential property in town in the BR1 zoning district. It's a detached dwelling and has 3 apartments in it. At one time, we have no records available before 2003, and from 2003 till 2005, the property paid rental registrations for 3 units. Then from 2007 to 2016, it paid registrations for only 2 units. So you've got 9 years where the 3rd unit was not registered as a rental, and under the zoning ordinance, we would consider this use abandoned. So what the current application is, the Montgomery County property records also list this as being 2 units. The zoning application is to legitimize the 3rd unit again. The property has 5 off-street parking spaces, which is what it had originally when it was considered to be 3 units. So the property is being transferred. Apparently, the owner is transferring it to his daughter, and they plan to live there, but they want to rent the other 2 units. So this gives us three units in one house, and they need to legitimize the 3rd unit.
So Chris, looking at the information we've received, there were no interior, exterior renovations made since the original 3 units were approved.
Not that I know of.
Right.
I'd have to go back and look at any permits in the street file. I was really only searching for registrations at that time.
Okay, and it was owner occupied when it
It's
was
hard
not a
to-
rental property?
That's hard to say, Jane, because the current owner of the property lives in Plymouth, and I don't believe he's ever resided in the property.
Okay.
And I'm not sure when he actually took ownership, if it was 2 or 3, or he was the one who decided to reduce it to 2.
But the 5 off-street parking spaces are used for that residence? There's no other agreements around it?
I don't believe so. I don't know. I didn't see anything about it. There were 5 parking spaces back when it was 3 units. That's what it originally was. There's a garage there. I'm not sure if one of the units is over the garage. That's something that has to be clarified at the zoning hearing. But I don't know that there is not another arrangement for parking there.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Stetler?
Any
Okay,
questions?
thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Again, this item will be on your agenda to make a recommendation either way on
In
this
2 weeks.
property. The next item on your agenda is consideration for Resolution 2017-15 Circuit Trails. I don't know if Matt Bridenstine is in the audience. Oh, Yaniv. The EAC is presenting this resolution to council. And Yaniv, I will let you discuss in greater
All right,
detail.
thank you. My name is Yaniv Aronson. I'm a member of our Environmental Advisory Council. Conshohocken residents and visitors of all ages enjoy walking, jogging, and biking along sections of the Schuylkill River Trail, which travels through Borough and is part of 320 miles of circuit trails currently connecting 9 Pennsylvania and New Jersey counties. The Conshohocken Environmental Advisory Council deeply appreciates the value of this eco-friendly multi-use trail system. We wanted Conshohocken as one of the 385 municipalities currently hosting completed sections of the circuit trails to issue a resolution supporting the continued expansion of the connected trails throughout the region. We are so grateful to Councilwoman Anita Barton, Borough Solicitor Michael Savona, and Interim Borough Manager Stephanie Checco for their support as Resolution 2017-15 Circuit Trails was prepared for consideration at tonight's Borough Council meeting. We are pleased to have Leonard Bonarek of the Bicycle Coalition, an organizing member of the Circuit Trails, with us. Mr. Bonarek would be happy to answer questions that you may have about the Circuit Trails, one of the largest metropolitan-wide multi-use trail building efforts in the United States. And he's here for any questions you may have.
Any questions?
Hello, good evening.
Hi. Where will this begin and end? 500 miles?
So the circuit as a network is a 750-mile network. About 327 miles of it are complete. So what we're looking to do, basically the goal of getting to 750 miles by 2040, we've fallen behind on as a region. And there's been a lot of shoulder shrugging about it. And so the interim goal of having 500 miles complete by 2025 will get us back on schedule to have 750 complete by 2040. So there are many planned and proposed sections. Some of them have already had design work done. Some of them are still just a concept. But the idea is that when we start building some overwhelming momentum from all the different municipalities that are in the DVRPC region, the entire region. And to date, we have 38 municipalities that have signed the resolution and another 84 that are considering it, like the Borough of Conshohocken is. So the idea is to build that overwhelming support that then we can then leverage into funding to actually get these projects out of the stalled phase that a lot of them are in.
Okay, well, I'm just looking at geography. Would it be Schuylkill County down to Philadelphia, or What's planned?
Every county in the region, all 9 counties have at least 50 miles of trails that need to be built. Some have over 100 miles of trails that need to be built. For example, a major link that we're pushing to get finished is the link that connects the Schuylkill River Trail to the Chester Valley Trail at Norristown, which would then give people access by bike right from Conshohocken all the way to Exton, eventually to Downingtown, and even to Maryland, right from here, all without having to ever deal with traffic. So that's just one example, but there are many, many miles of trails in all the different counties that are still pending.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Managers, matters.
The first item under manager matters is considering approving a fee waiver request for the Torrey Smith Family Fund. Torrey Smith is a member of the Philadelphia Eagles football team. They are proposing to host a camp in Sutcliffe Park on July 9th, so it is this Sunday, from 10 to 3 p.m. The uniqueness of this camp is that it focuses on STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. They apply those aspects to sports. So, for example, the physics behind throwing a football spiral, or the science that involves in a perfect golf swing. So the camp is free. Again, they are asking for a fee waiver request for use of Sutcliffe Park. They would be still required to turn in a certificate of insurance. But the Department of Recreation has it in front of council based off of the request to waive the fee and the fact that it is free to participate.
Who is the camp open to? And who are they advertising to?
They are advertising to the entire local community. They are trying to connect directly with the Conshohocken community, working with the borough to advertise to borough residents as well.
And it's this,
It is this Sunday, July 9th, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m.
So we have to approve that
You can
tonight.
make a vote on that tonight then?
Yes.
and we haven't advertised it yet
It is not.
for Conshohocken?
We are advertising it, but not advertising that we are waiving the fee.
So
that
we're
you said.
advertising the camp that's been
correct,
out there.
Because it is free for residents.
And
Yes.
that's been out there for how long?
I don't know that answer.
And has it been advertised to other communities in a longer period of time?
That's correct, yes.
It wasn't approved.
Well, they're using the park regardless,
Okay, so, all right, whether or not we waive.
whether or not you waive the fee. The camp is happening.
You gotta make a vote on that?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
I got a vote in second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item up is the National Citizen Survey. If you remember, this was in front of you a couple months ago. We held off on approving the final survey questions so that we were doing it in conjunction with the Comprehensive Plan Task Force, with the Marywood Park Commission, so that we were sending out one consolidated survey to our residents while developing plans for the future. So what is in front of you and in your meeting materials for tonight is that final survey structure. It encompasses any and all requests for alterations that you have sent to my office or the communications office directly. It also has been reviewed and supplemented by our Comprehensive Plan Task Force members and our Comprehensive Plan Task Consultant. The timeline is that we would be submitting final survey documents to the NCS team on July 7th, which is this Friday. Postcard mailings would go out to those households that were chosen on July 21st. You'd have your first wave of mailings on July 28th, your second wave of mailings on August 4th, and most importantly, if there were any residents or households not selected in the hard copy mailings, it would go the survey option, which would be an electronic format that would be on the Borough website, would be available to all residents to participate on August 25th. Data collection would end September 8th. We'd receive a draft report on September 29th. And your final report that would capture all data would be completed on October 13th.
Stephanie, it goes on the website August 25th.
The same survey that would be mailed out would then go live for any and all residents that wanted to participate. They weren't chosen in the original mailing on August 25th. It would be an opt-in survey.
And is there a way to verify they are residents? Not
They're-
just anyone?
They ask address on the survey, so if they
Okay.
were not within the borough constructs, which we have provided the exact same GIS data, which maps out the boundaries of the borough that we've provided to our Comprehensive Plan Task Force, to the NCS survey team. So when they're compiling responses, anything that is either of a Conshohocken zip code, which isn't within the borough confines, would not be considered in the data collection.
But then they'll still be anonymous, even though people go online, they put their address in to verify their residence.
That would
It's
be
still-
only available to the NCS team
Okay.
when they're doing their data
Okay,
collection.
So it's still anonymous, but we can verify residency.
Correct. It'll be blinded to us.
Mhm.
The team will have the information to validate addresses and who's filling it out. But the important part here is that it is a multimedia survey.
Right.
So we are looking at how to do it in multiple formats
Right.
to try and get as much input from the residents as possible
I think that's
as we
excellent.
move forward.
So is there any reason why we can't post it on the website prior to August 25th?
It's part of the NCS process. They give, they're sending out 1,500 mailings.
Right.
So that's the first wave. They follow a concerted timeline based off of scientific data and the research that they've done, that they have success in doing so. The opt-in survey is at the last leg of the data collection. That's the company's preference. That opt-in survey access electronically is also part of the overall fee. We're not expending extra dollars to have that option.
Do you need a motion tonight for this?
I do, if we would like to stick with that timeline.
Okay, I would make that motion.
And I'll second it.
I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Next item under manager matters is considering a supplemental appropriation for the outstanding balance of the Keystone developer fee. This was presented to you first last month. Under council direction, it was pulled off of that list. And just if we can make a note that Councilman Stokely has recused himself for this topic. We were negotiating, myself and Mr. Savona, with Keystone directly for soft costs that were due to the borough, and the developer fee, which is still outstanding, which is owed to Keystone. That negotiation is finalized. The agreed soft costs are set, and this letter and the supplemental appropriation would approve and finalize the outstanding developer fee.
I will make a motion to finalize and get that off our plate, please.
I'll second it.
Make it the rule.
I got a motion to finalize and accept the development fee. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
The next item The next item is a discussion topic.
Put it on record that Bob had to excuse himself from that vote.
Got it.
Next.
Next item is a discussion topic. It is in preparation for our financial consultant, Julie Davis, to be on site July 19th to do your quarterly financial review. At that same meeting, she will be available to answer any questions regarding a policy on capitalization, useful lives, and depreciation. This was one of the goals for fiscal year 2017 from an administrative perspective. This draft policy has been finalized. Our finance consultant, our accountant, myself, and other members of administration have discussed it. There is some work still to be done. However, it is in front of you for consideration. It's a fixed capital asset listing and a depreciation schedule, which the borough does not currently have. From an audit perspective and a financial perspective in terms of financial statements, we need to have it. How this will function moving forward is that our financial consultant will maintain a schedule electronically in what's called, let's check my notes, the BNA Fixed Asset Program software. The information is proprietary to the borough. So if our outside financial consultant is maintaining this on a monthly basis, we can pull it and ask for those records at any point. What this will do is that we'll have a capitalization level for all items within the borough that we will need to keep, that we will be keeping on schedule. That's what this policy is setting. So if you can review the policy, let me know if you have any questions or concerns leading up to the 19th. We can address them with Julie in the room. One of the highlights just to discuss tonight is just that the depreciation method that will be applied is the straight line basis method of depreciation based off of useful life. There are categories presented here of what those useful lives will be per item. I will be working with staff over the next 2 weeks as well to confirm that their area of expertise, these useful lives, make sense for them. That is the only thing that might change from this policy unless you have major concerns about language or what's proposed. For example, our Director of Public Services or our Chief of Police might feel differently on what the useful life is of a specific vehicle or a piece of equipment, and it's important for them to have a say in what those final numbers are.
Do we know what depreciation logic we were using prior to it without policy?
When it stops running.
Okay, that's a way, that's a methodology.
I think that specifically considering the success of the audits, one of the items that continues to come up is that we are lacking in the depreciation, the capitalization policy aspect. This is, along with what we just discussed in terms of OPEB, this is another area that will just make us more financially sound in terms of accounting principles.
Okay, thank you.
So again, this will be up for consideration on the 19th, and Julie Davis will be on site should you have any further questions or need any additional clarification.
Any more questions on that? Okay. Okay, Steph, move on.
Okay. Last item under Manager Matters is a proposed A-field walking track operation. I think everyone is very excited that the A-field walking track is complete, looks fantastic, will be a great amenity to borough residents. I think it's something that we should really be proud of and that staff did a phenomenal job in completing. Along with the A-field track, though the actual project be completing, now we need to determine and ensure we're all on the same board in terms of how it's going to operate and how we're going to be using it. So we had an operations meeting internally with staff. It was discussed as to what is best based off of resources we have at hand. Those proposed operations would be that the stadium itself would be open from the start of the public services morning shift until dusk, depending on the season. That would mean you'd have a weekday operation of Monday through Friday where public services would be opening the stadium. The police department would be closing. The restrooms would be available until 3 p.m. The public services would be responsible for opening, closing, and cleaning, maintaining prior to the end of their shift. Weekends would be slightly different, so that meaning Saturday and Sundays, that the police department would open, the police department would close, and the restrooms would not be open. There's an issue with cleaning and restocking over the weekend, so it would be our recommendation that they remain closed on Saturdays and Sundays. For holidays, the stadium would not be open, meaning the track would not be open. And then just some other items for your consideration. We would not be utilizing lights, which is why the park would close at dusk. There will be signs that will be posted explaining the operations so that residents can see it clearly in print. We can also post information to all of our media outlets. There would be one pedestrian front gate that will be opened along Harry Street and the vehicle gate for accessibility and also to accommodate for strollers, etc. The stadium would remain open to the public when there are practices on the field. So there was a presentation on Chestnut Hill using the A field. That walking track would remain available to the public even though the practice was taking place. However, the walking track would be closed for rentals that are specific for contests, tournaments, games, or events that either require an admission fee or that would be a safety hazard. And of course, with all things that are new, from an administrative perspective, there might be things that come up that we either didn't expect or that is a problem or is a good idea, and we would just like to reserve the right to make any small adjustments to what we're presenting tonight. So that is your administrative proposal for how that walking track would operate moving forward. Any comments or questions or concerns?
I'm good.
How about Colleen? It's up in your ward.
I'm okay. We still have the public porta potty for weekend use if we need it in the B field.
That is correct. There is
So-
a portable restroom located on the B field that is clearly available for public use should they need it.
Yes.
We can always put one there in the A field.
If the demand.
Yeah, if demand is there or get a timer on the bathrooms.
There's always options later.
There's,
on.
again, that would be something we'd have to look at in 2018. But again, that's why I'm saying reserve the right. If we need to make a small or an adjustment based off of need, we will do so.
Right.
Any more questions?
So the track is ready to go? Your operation plan sounds like it is pretty comprehensive. You had a team approach to the operation plan. Do you have a start date in mind?
If you're approving it, then it would be starting on Monday. After the holiday.
Is there access to the B field?
So that gate's
The
gonna be
access to
open.
the B field is,
So
Yeah, yeah.
people can actually park over there and enter with strollers.
Correct?
Right.
no, the back gate would not be open. It would just be the front vehicle gate and the front pedestrian gate.
Oh, I thought we were opening that back. Is there a reason
That's-
we're not?
The reasoning that we discussed was the control and the issue in terms of closing the facility, that it is enclosed, and then when it's dusk, to go in and enforce exit from the stadium. The dual entrance could pose an issue
For security.
for security reasons.
Wouldn't parking along that side be better though,
It is.
rather than taking up any residential spots?
This is the conversation. So if that's the recommendation, we have staff members that were in that meeting on site that can come up and they can answer those questions.
My suggestion would be if we're only opening one,
Mhm.
I would open the other side. If that's.
Lieutenant Metz or Ray, I don't know if you have an input in that conversation, if you're comfortable with that, if you can come to the podium.
I don't think it matters to us what gate we open or close.
Okay.
I look at it as people there to exercise, right? They're gonna walk around the block. I consider that. I would consider in the future, though, to put like a real man gate back there as opposed to what's there now. They're big.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
They're more like cable gates.
My,
You know, if you decide that that's the gate you would want to open, that's fine with us. We can close them and open that one too.
But again, why, no other park has locked, and we wanted to take the lock off the gate. We should have a ceremony for that because it's been locked up so long. Why do we have to have that locked if we have no other park locked? Why can't we just do a trial basis, not locking the A field up and let people use it?
So you have,
But at
the
night,
sentiment that was.
People go in Sutcliffe at night.
But we can't
but they,
lock
but
up
the
the other
police
parks.
can
I know, but
see, but
still,
the police can could patrol and see that park at night.
Not all the time. George could tell you that down at Sutcliffe. George, would it be a problem if we didn't lock it up?
Lieutenant, can you come to the podium, please? Thank you.
Lieutenant.
Yes.
If you're asking if I wouldn't recommend opening, not locking the A field, and for the reasons that were just discussed. It's walled off and hard to see in there. Sutcliffe, we can drive into the field, down onto the field, look into dugouts and all those things. Even now, when we do our park checks at the A field, you have to park your car, get out, unlock the gate, and go in to look to see what's going on there. So I wouldn't recommend leaving it open, because you're out of the public eye there also. There's really, once you're in, nobody knows you're there and they don't know what you're doing. So I wouldn't recommend that.
And then
But-
opening both sides presents that the reason for not being able to accommodate that?
Well, I haven't, if we can lock and unlock those gates, whatever you decide is fine, you know what I mean? I would prefer just having it done in one spot, or at least a man gate at that back entrance. However, however you decide to do it, we can handle it, it's not a problem.
But the mayor's right, given the people parking that are going to use the facility, it takes the burden off the neighbors of.
There would have to be some kind of signage or something, because my expectation, if I was going in the park, I'd go at the front gate. So just something so that everyone would understand that there's additional.
We can
parking.
easily, we can,
Additional parking in the back.
We're fine on the
Additional
front.
parking in the back,
Right.
on the B field.
That's fine on the
Because I would go there. I would go
that is,
back.
yes.
Pardon me?
The mayor was just saying the portable restrooms in the B field. So if you're considering the back entrance.
That could be a problem. The bathroom on the B field side.
It's easy to get to for the trucks, because if
We
you put it
moved it.
inside, you have the trucks rolling.
Right.
My concern was more for the seniors. It's easier for the seniors of the residents of the whole borough to park in that parking lot and walk in without having, there's a lot of seniors that would love to be able to walk on a level surface and can't necessarily get up that hill. So that was my one reason for that, because that's.
So what I'm hearing is that we would propose, instead of the front gate, to post signage at the front gate that would direct people to the rear gate that's adjacent to the B field, and we would ask the police department to lock that back gate and the public services department to open the back gate. That would be the access point.
And the front gate.
Well, the lieutenant very nicely said that if we needed him to do both, they could handle that. He did.
It would take care of a problem that Mrs. Checo discussed, which was strollers.
Right.
A flat surface to get in and out of there. So you're opening two gates anyway. Just one's in one corner, the other's in the other corner. And that would serve the purpose of
Okay,
elderly or
right.
strollers or.
So do the one at, oh my God, I hate to even say it this way, the gate at the top of the hill coming in,
Yes.
facing
Harry.
the physical therapy.
Right, so
So the main gate.
the vehicle gate
The
at,
main gate at the bottom will still stay closed coming up the hill.
correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'd be opening the vehicle gate at Harry and
Yes,
the
the
vehicle
vehicle
gate
gate.
on, adjacent to the V field.
Yes. Okay. If you guys can.
It's okay. It'd be ridiculous for me to argue about that. It's just the gate.
So why open the vehicle gate when people can drive in there? Why don't you just open the front gate up
So
on the
it's
street?
easier for strollers.
There's
Oh, to go up into the-
Yeah.
there's just an issue with stairs.
Yes.
Oh, okay, the
That
stairs,
makes
yeah.
sense, yeah.
Somewhere you're going to post no wheeled vehicles, like bicycles, skateboards, things of that nature, whipping around on that track and
That
kicking
is,
people off?
that is the intention, yes.
How about wheelies?
Except for wheeled strollers.
Rollerblades.
The surface would not permit that.
Okay.
So you gotta find someplace else to go, Anita.
Thanks, Bob. 750
Okay.
miles.
Are there
Thank
any
you,
other
George.
questions for Lieutenant Metz?
Thank you, George.
Thank you, Sam.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got some department matters.
We're good?
We're good.
Okay,
Go
we're
for
good.
it.
Okay.
Council doesn't always get their way.
Moving on to department matters. The first item is considering awarding the Ayfield Fence project contract. This is just an informational. The bids for the Ayfield Fence project have gone out and have been advertised. They will be on, as long as we receive bids that meet our specifications, it'll be on your agenda for consideration at your public meeting.
Would you be able to talk those bidders into a free fence on that field side?
I don't know if I'm that good at persuading people, but
Your best shot.
the next item is consider awarding the Hector Street Streetscape Improvement Project contract. This was in front of you a few months ago. The budget was set, the design was approved. This has also been put out to bid and has been advertised on June 29th and July 3rd. If we receive bids within our specifications as well for this project, it will be on your agenda for consideration to award at your public meeting in July.
And at that point, we will get a letter out to the residents.
That is correct. So if approved, we will then send correspondence to the residents that will be affected by this improvement project, which is exciting, letting them know what is happening in timeline per the contract. Next item for consideration is approving the educational reimbursement for Officer Sean Gregory. You have the class that he is taking that is requested to take. There is money budgeted for this. This is more of an informational item for you to understand that the $30,000 that is budgeted is being utilized per this
For
request.
the contract.
For the contract, yes.
Do you need anything
Nope.
from us?
For the next item, discuss fiscal years 2017 liquid fuels paving recommendations and borough infrastructure. I will ask Mr. Hughes to come to the podium.
Good evening.
Just to kick off this presentation, there is money that is allocated annually for liquid fuels. The first recommendation you will see is what items could potentially be bid out to utilize the liquid fuels that we have for fiscal year 2017. And additionally, we will also be broaching a larger infrastructure topic that's in preparation for your goal setting and budget planning for fiscal year 2018. You have a PowerPoint in front of you, and I will let Mr. Hughes take it.
And we have good news and bad news. Kate tells me the two front monitors don't appear to be working this evening, but the good news is the audience will be able to see the presentation on the rear monitor. But you guys do have handouts. But the first thing is in your packets, a memo dated June 29th related to proposed paving locations for 2017. If council were to choose to go forward with a liquid fuels strictly mill and overlay resurfacing project for 2017. Those locations are Forest Street between West 2nd Avenue and West 3rd Avenue, Wood Street between West 5th Avenue and West 6th Avenue, West 11th Avenue from Fayette Street to Maple Street, East 8th Avenue from Fayette Street to Hollowell Street, and Jones Street from East Hector Street to East Elm Street. The intent for these 5 locations was to try to maximize the ability to do strictly, again, milling and resurfacing without any other additional work such as curb ramps or storm sewer or dealing with plates and pipes under driveways and corners. This is strictly mill and pave with some contingencies to do some base repairs should the need arise after the streets have been milled. Also, there's time to consider additional locations for potential for an alternate bid, and then to be able to add to the program if, in fact, the bids are advantageous. So that's something that Mr. Sokolowski and I have talked about last week in terms of adding some locations if the bids come in advantageous. So the first part of this discussion is, and then we can kind of circle back to this, is going forward with liquid fuels paving for 2017, because a big part of the presentation that I'm about to get into has to do with kind of bigger picture, longer term planning and dealing with potentially financing larger projects, larger scale, to try to get a little more bang for our buck. Just something to consider, of course, looking towards the future, towards our infrastructure planning. So if you'd like, we can put this on the shelf for right now, and I can get into just kind of an update of where we are with infrastructure planning and where we're going to get into over the course of July and August to get ready for 2018 capital project budgeting.
So I think just to give you a framework of what the purpose of this conversation is, we're asking you to think about multiple options at this point. There's the current option where you can take your liquid fuels for 2017, you can approve the locations that Paul has recommended, you would then put that out to bid, you would award a contract, you would complete paving per those recommendations in 2017, and you would move on. That same cycle would be available for you for 2018. Other options could potentially be, and Paul will get into this in greater detail, but just to summarize, you could look at a larger scope paving/infrastructure plan, where you break it down between stormwater and infrastructure as round 1 and then paving in round 2. Your other option would be a much larger road program. You could potentially look at east side paving and infrastructure, west side paving and infrastructure. However, the point of the conversation is to say that you will then need to find financing options potentially to fund either of those larger options. So Paul's going to walk you through some history and also some potentials for moving forward. And again, this is to start this topic. You can either give us direction that you want us to move forward with fiscal year 2017 liquid fuel uses, or we can move in a different direction. Or we can, again, complete that and then talk about it in the budget cycle. Okay.
So as you guys know, we've been working on a bigger picture infrastructure plan for managing infrastructure going into the future in a little bit different way than maybe we had in the past. And I want to get into a little bit of the status of kind of where I am with that process, some projects that we have on the shelf, so to speak, and go through a little bit of an exercise related to economy of scale. So far this year, I've completed the borough-wide pavement condition assessment, which, as you might imagine, was a long, lonely walk throughout the entire borough, looking at the pavement condition and doing an inventory of things like curb ramps, storm sewer, and other sort of miscellaneous issues on a block-by-block basis. That sort of raw data is now ready to kind of be synthesized and put into a plan to come up with essentially a full build-out from the borough and then figure out different ways to kind of break that down so we can attack it from a year-to-year basis and then have options from a financing perspective in terms of how to break those projects up or expand those projects and group them together to hit them in a larger format. More status updates, 2017 Liquid Fuels Program recommendation we just talked about. We have a project for curb ramps that we actually had a pre-construction meeting on today, which is mostly Ward 7. There are a handful of locations getting curb ramps that will happen. Actually, the contractor says it's going to be done in about a week, starting in a couple weeks, so it should be a pretty quick project over the course of the next month. The Harry Street project, you guys may remember, we had it out to bid a couple times in the last couple years. That's a project that's very important to remember is shovel-ready, signed, sealed drawings, ready to go at any time. A good place to start on a larger format project. Another project that some of you might know about and some of you might not remember is the Caldwell Lane Storm Sewer Diversion Project. Is another shovel-ready, signed, sealed design project, but we've kind of been held up with some issues over at the Grand because the project involves going through their parking lot. But just so everyone's aware, that project, the design for that project is available for at some point to hopefully get back to. Also, we do have a survey for Stoddard Avenue that was done for a potential storm sewer project related to an issue with a facility that runs underneath Septus tracks. That project also might end up being put on the shelf due to the potential crossing at Oak Street, which I guess we'll find out. If that's going to go forward, it probably doesn't make much sense for us to tackle that with borough funds. But that we have made some investment in terms of doing a survey for that area, just so you're aware. So what's next? Next for me is going to be over the next few weeks to put together a draft of the infrastructure plan. One of the reasons that we're here tonight is so I can get some feedback from you guys to make sure that I know where your heads are and what your intentions are, so I can filter that into the plan as I'm putting it together. My intent is to have a first draft of that ready for July 21st, when the interim manager has asked for capital project budgets to be put forth. Then presumably we'll be getting some more feedback, so that over the course of hopefully early August, but in August we can finalize that full infrastructure management plan and then be ready to move forward with completing the 2018 capital budget items for infrastructure and getting into design and getting ready to go. So I wanted to talk a little bit about approach. This is really the history that I can remember from when I first started here, right around the end of 2005. 2006, consequently, it was the first year I was really here for a full program, and it happens to be the last year that we did a very large project. It was about a $1.8 million project, multiple locations. Some of you might remember West 6th Avenue, most of 3rd Avenue, West 7th Avenue, East 10th Avenue, kind of all over the place. But it was a very large project where we did storm sewer, curb ramps, and paving, all one big shot. And then from there, between 2007 and 2014, we kind of got into a capped spending format where every year there was a certain amount of dollars that was thrown into infrastructure, and that was kind of a mad scramble to sort of cram and squeeze whatever could be put into that. And I put on, for an example, around $300,000 a year. So there were challenges associated with that, but that was the format that was prevalent to about 2014. In 2014, the shift became more on a project basis. We look at what do we want to do, how much is that going to cost, and then let's put that in the budget. So it was an interesting way to see how both operations went. I feel that once we went into the idea where we want to see what projects we want to do and budget accordingly, it lessened a little bit of the sort of scrambles for everyone to try to figure out what can I try to champion to fit into that capped budget, as opposed to saying, hey, we want to make sure we have the projects that we want to do and then assign the budgets accordingly. I think what we want to look for to kind of build on that evolution in 2018 and beyond is to continue to have a flexible infrastructure plan where, as I was kind of describing before, you have the ability to look at the bigger picture and break it up into different pieces, but to try to make sure that technically and sequentially those pieces make sense. So you're not just breaking it off and saying, we're going to spend $300,000 or $500,000 and that's it. We've got to break it off into pieces that make sense sequentially to make sure that all the infrastructure gets done in each location in the right order and for the right reasons. So some of the problems that I've seen over the last 12 years, that I was kind of alluding to in the sort of cramming of into a capped budget. One is the reactivity in project selection. I think we've probably all experienced this, where something comes up in a particular year, that becomes the squeaky wheel. You push real hard to try to get it done, and you don't really realize at the time that you're throwing a plan out the window. You know, how good was the plan? Maybe you don't know now, but it's out the window because the squeaky wheel gets the grease. The other one that I have a really good example of, because it's right outside of our front door, or maybe our back door, is the elephant in the room. And the problem I see here is when you have the opportunity to, say, mill and overlay 5 streets, but for the same cost, you could take a really bad street that needs a full reconstruction and attack that, like, for instance, West 5th Avenue, right outside our back parking lot. It becomes a lot easier from a year-to-year basis in terms of looking at the impact that you'd like to be able to make on a borough-wide scale and say, you know what, let's mill and overlay the 5 streets instead of just reconstructing the one. I'm not saying that's a bad decision, but with the funding format that we've had, what we had for all those years, sometimes it was the only decision. It became very difficult to say, let's only put the resources into this one location. Problem, of course, being now that just continues to get kicked down the lane. And that's the next one, kick the can down the road. All those big projects, those most in need, costly projects, you know, you just say we'll do it next year, and somehow, some way, it never seems to come back around. And the last thing is, we never wanted to spend money in the same location twice. And a good example of this is a good pavement management system usually involves a series of paving and sealing and repaving to kind of create some intermittent maintenance on these streets. But sometimes from a public perspective, you say, well, we just paved that street, why are we going to put more dollars into it? And when you have that capped spending amount, it becomes even more difficult to say, yeah, we should put more money into that street that we were just there 5 years ago, why are we going back? But if you look at it from the bigger picture, sometimes doing that, of course, is going to make sure that that pavement surface is going to have the longer lifespan, and over the long term, just be the smarter thing to do. So like I mentioned, I wanted to get into a little bit of the economy of scale and try to break this down into terms that we're kind of used to talking about, especially in a small borough. For 1 square mile, we don't necessarily talk about things in terms of lane miles like PennDOT would. We're usually on kind of a block-by-block basis. So with that in mind, I tried to put together a little bit of an exercise to give you an idea of how that scale might impact our ability to get things done with more dollars in play. So for instance, a sample project, I used a Borough Street. Let's take our typical avenue, a 40-foot wide, 500-foot long block. And assuming 3 basic treatment types, a standard mill and overlay, what I'm calling a partial depth reconstruction or a full depth reconstruction, and then making another basic assumption, of course, that asphalt placement costs are going to decrease as the volume of work increases. Here's a couple of charts that break down some sample expected cost, I'll say, per square yard on the top for mill and overlay, ranging from $17.65 a square yard for if you assume that the cost for asphalt is $100 a ton versus about $13.45 per square yard at $70 a ton. And of course, kind of follows suit for the different types of reconstructions. If we were to put that in terms of a Conshohocken typical block, I think the numbers are a little bit more striking. If you look at that mill and overlay cost of $39,000 at $100 a ton and $29,000 at $70 a ton, now you're talking about saving $10,000 a block, which sounds a lot more of a tangible thing when you're thinking about how to allocate resources to keeping the infrastructure up to date. And of course, the other activities follow suit. So I was trying to find a way to sort of summarize this, and what I came up with was, if you look at the total number of blocks that you can do for different project values from $200,000 up to $2 million, with the assumptions I mentioned on the cost of asphalt, you go from 5 blocks for $200,000, which of course is pretty much what we're recommending for this year for the paving program, as opposed to 67 blocks for $2 million. Well, it's no secret that you can do more. The question is really how much more. So I broke it down into blocks per $100,000 spent for each type of project. And you got 2.55 blocks for a $200,000 project for each $100,000 spent versus 3.34 blocks for each $100,000 spent in a $200,000 project. Well, what does that mean? It means that you're almost getting an additional block for every 100K spent, and that comes out to about 30% more production. 30% suddenly is a pretty big number when you're talking about how to allocate dollars into getting your streets up to date. So just to recap for tonight, Stephanie mentioned, this is intended to just kind of wet your whistle a little bit and prepare for the 2018 goal-setting session. We'd like to get whatever input that we can in order to weave those thoughts into the infrastructure plan, and then to explore maybe different financing options than have been looked at in the past beyond the liquid fuels allocation and general fund dollars to put in the infrastructure. Any questions, thoughts, ideas?
Good question?
Do we know what the liquid fuels dollars have been historically, year over year?
We are, I don't know the exact amount. I guess Angela's not here. Just under 200,000, I think, is where we are right now. This year, we have, I want to say 240, Stephanie, something in that
Around
neighborhood?
240,000, yes.
Yeah. We had a little bit of carryover from last year, and so, yeah, we're looking at about 240,000.
If we were to put together a large-scale plan that would address the infrastructure as well as the street repavement piece of it, would it be beneficial for us to look at potentially finding funding sources such as a loan where we know that we can't do one street at a time? I mean, 10 years is a long time to not do anything. So would it be beneficial for us to look at other options to get more bang for our buck, to use the economy as a scale, and to actually have maybe a 5-year road plan where we could get all our roads done, and maybe the $200K a year would go towards our monthly debt source?
Debt service, yeah. There are a lot of municipalities, and Paul and I and Stephanie have talked about that. A lot of the municipalities I work with are actually starting to look to do that. Rather than doing small amounts of paving every year with the money that comes available, if you take a look at how much debt that could pay for, and you know the liquid fuels allocation stays relatively stable, it sometimes goes up, because that's all tied to gasoline tax. So as the state sells or collects taxes on gasoline fuel, that money's constantly replenished. So if you wanted to price out and get cost estimates for a larger borrowing, Paul mentioned a couple of larger numbers, yeah, that's definitely something that you could do, get that work done in a couple of years, and then use the debt service, or use the liquid fuels money to pay the debt service. So it doesn't impact your general fund budget, but it allows you to do more work up front.
But Paul, are you confident if we do bigger projects, we can get the people to bid it and contractors that are reliable to do these bigger projects? Because when we did them in the future, it didn't come out too well.
Well, you may or may not be referring to the particular contractor we had in the
I know who
project
you're
that I
talking
mentioned.
about.
Hey, listen, it's a public low bid. I do think that the bigger ticket items you'd like to think would attract some of those bigger outfits that are out there on the interstate and doing PennDOT projects and turnpike projects. But
there's a big difference between a $2 million contract and a $200,000 contract. Just
And
in
also,
terms of
if you-
priority on bidding.
If you're promising 5 years' worth of work, I would think that you would get a different group bidding as well.
They're
It's
good
something to think about, but we always have to think about what we have on our plate coming up, too. We have a lot of things we have to
Right. That's what
worry
we're
about with the
getting these
this
numbers
new
for the
building
budget.
and all
Right.
the numbers for the budget. I think we need to look at what we have on our plate, but I think also we should stay on track on doing our road programs and stay on consistent what we're doing to keep our roads up to where they should be. So I wouldn't want to push back a year of not doing a road program, because in 2 years, 3 years, we're going to get a bigger road program.
Yeah.
But we should stay consistent, and because those roads, they fail fast. And then we always get these emergencies pop up, which we did last year.
Yep.
Okay, so.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because the great irony here is that I'm not recommending that we push this year's program, because every year we pave is a good year.
That's
Every
right.
time we pave a street, it's a good thing. But the reality is that it's on the lower dollars, it's not going to be quite as cost effective.
All right.
So, and I know that there's some discussion to be had and some research to be done to come up with financing that's going to make sense. So, again, I can't stand up here and say that I'm just going to strongly recommend pushing that project back, because the roads are unraveling rapidly. My walkabout town was frankly more alarming than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I drove down Harry Street and thought, whoa.
Yeah.
So,
We had a light winter,
Yeah,
we get a
lucky
couple
in that regard,
good,
yes.
heavy storms and a couple bad winters, and roads are gonna fail.
So my suggestion would be before we start with budget for the fall, we do our research on the different options that we have to be able to do it at a higher range.
Production
well, the
rate.
question is, do we use the 2017 budgeted money already to do those areas that he is talking about while we're doing our research on
Yeah, we stay
larger?
consistent.
Yeah,
And we
To
stay up
follow
on the,
through
yeah.
with what's planned for
What's
this
planned
year
for this
and then
year.
look for next year,
rather than roll it. just-
financing a bigger
use-
project in the
So we
future.
have that 240 available to us now.
Right.
Right. So maybe go ahead and do the programs now,
These projects.
to finish those, and then we'll look at 2018 for
Yeah,
a
I
bigger
don't think the
project.
240 is going to affect, if we do a $2 million project, I don't think it's going to
No.
hurt to do 240.
Especially if
What do you
they're in
think,
such
Jean?
bad
No, it wouldn't be like we would be tearing that up in the future project if we did
Right.
those 5 streets.
Yeah, those locations were looked at to be places that we know we're not going to go back in and do storm sewer. For instance, the one recommendation for East 8th Avenue, the intent is to jump Harry Street because we know we need to do Harry Street and we know that that's going to involve more infrastructure. So we wouldn't be paving that intersection and then coming back. But on the other side, we wouldn't be looking at doing more infrastructure in 11th and Forest, because I know that stormwater goes down and gets collected in new facilities that we just put in down at Maple Street, so we could pave straight through, and we have new ramps in that intersection as well. So, yeah, we've considered trying to eliminate that double work.
And what's the timeline for the 5 streets, if we were to continue with the plan as it is?
If we were to go forward now, we would put it out to bid, open it up, award in August, and pave in September.
And it would be done by,
Yeah, a short project, so assuming it can start early in September or the maybe second week after Labor Day, it should be done by the end of the month.
and it makes you feel good, like Paul said. If you see a new road redone, it shows that we're doing
It's
something to take care of our roads in the town.
Are we voting on this tonight?
No, I think that for tonight, it was a discussion piece. On your agenda for the 19th,
Okay.
we'll have either the motion to recommend use of the liquid fuels currently in fiscal year 2017, and then for your planning and goal setting, there'll be, if that's what I'm hearing correctly in terms of your direction, you'd like to see more research and options in terms of both road programs and financing.
Yes.
Okay.
Paul, can you get a total for what it would cost? You said 40,000 for a fifth.
Oh, I don't know.
It's more than that,
Yeah. I estimated it last year at 190,000.
190, and that's to take out the concrete slab and everything.
Yeah, and then there's some other work that has to be done at the low end where the pipe crossing was done.
Right.
Sort of save some concrete work from back there. There's a handful of driveways, and it's more of a partial reconstruction, I would say, and then there's rehabbing that slab over the water main. So, yeah, I think I had it at 189,000.
I think it's also just important to note that Mr. Sokolowski and Mr. Hughes have done a lot of work in terms of infrastructure and evaluating to get us to this point. So I'd like to thank them both for that, and I know that they'll both be diligent in presenting recommendations moving forward.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Paul. We got legal matters right now. You got any legal matters there, Steph?
No, sir.
No legal matters? Okay, then, council members matters?
Paul, you might as well stay up. I received contact from some of our residents on the lower end of 6, between Wood and Caldwell, and their concern about the speeding and the inability to be able to cross the street. That block is, what did we figure, about 750 feet?
Well, that's
Or
the
was it a
distance
little more?
that's the difference from where the angle parking ends down to Caldwell, more or less.
And we would like to have council consider putting 2 speed tables in And that would be, I think you just wanted the two of those for right now to see if we can calm the traffic speeding there. It's a huge, long block. Also, we'd like to consider doing another traffic study to see just how fast people are going on that street. So I would need your okay to move forward with this.
I
And
think,
get things in a line and basically our ducks in a row before we actually move forward
right.
and start putting tables in. We need a little more information regarding this.
When was the last time a study was done?
2016,
And the results of that indicated?
not much, but we've got families down there now.
Okay, can I say something?
Sure.
I feel that this is a problem we have throughout our town.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at speeding, I would tell you that Walnut Street and Spring Mill Avenue are really suffering right now. As soon as Hector gets backed up, people whip around the corner, tear up Walnut, blow the stop sign, and I was behind someone on my way here tonight. So if we're going to talk about speed tables, we have to do them throughout the town. We just can't do them in one block.
Well, this is like a beginning.
Well, it wasn't in the budget this year.
Oh, no, I realize that. I
Right.
realize that. This is just a look and see for now and possibly getting into the budget for next year.
Okay.
I'm confused on what we're looking and seeing for. What exactly are we looking and seeing for the budget?
That we would be able to put two small speed tables in, one in, like halfway down the block and one halfway up the block.
But then again, I think we need to do a comprehensive study of all the streets because speeding is a town-wide issue.
Yes,
It is,
agreed.
and this problem with the stoplights or stop signs is the same.
Yeah,
I think
agreed.
you ought to get the police involved in this,
Uh,
too.
yeah,
We-
that's-
we
we'd like to
make
do
it-
That would be,
Yeah, that would be a good
That's-
idea.
We'd be happy
Why I
to,
asked for the
to
traffic
work with
study.
them for,
Yeah. Okay.
My
Sure.
residents
One
would
more
like to
minute.
see.
yeah, one more minute.
Anything else?
I agree with Ms. Flanagan that this is a comprehensive borough-wide issue. I think that we do need to come up with solutions for the borough, for sure. But I definitely think that the police need to be involved, as well as the studies, to try and identify traffic calming. Because the other thing that we don't want are bumps all over town, because we think that they'll work.
Right, and I also think then people will avoid 6th Avenue and take 11th or 10th, whichever way they can. So that's why if it's town-wide, we do something to limit the speeding, we would have to be more effective.
I do have several residents that are here.
That'd be great.
Well, during
Well, if I
public
can-
comment.
If I can just add one thing, that when we review the agenda prior to the meetings, the police were 100% willing to do additional surveys of other areas, because this is presented as a constituent concern that was brought to council's attention. It was brought to Councilmember Barton's attention. It's now been brought to full council. We have the opportunity to look at setting goals and objectives for fiscal year 2018 when we can reallocate budget and budget purposes at that point. So this is a conversation that we'll have. We'll have a larger conversation on this topic and other areas of concerns in terms of traffic and speeding and safety when we're looking at goals and objectives for 2018. But that will include conversations from the police department, from our public services department, from our traffic engineer, as they are required to give an accurate picture of what it is that we really need to do and should do as well.
Okay, any more questions? Well,
Public comment. Oh,
Yeah,
public.
we're on
public comment.
Public
Come
comments
to the mic,
now. Any
please.
public comments?
So my name's Jennifer Primus from pretty much 12th and Maple Street, the corner. My father has presented you with the whole speed bump situation, and in case if the residents don't know this, there's a PennDOT stipulation that it has to be at least 100 feet from a stop sign, which pretty much in a regular block is like halfway down. So it's really not going to stop the people from stopping or speeding after that speed bump. My suggestion is in this long stretch, because, I mean, is the speed limit 25 miles an hour? It's the same as Fayette Street. So, I mean, they're going to go 25 miles an hour if they can. The situation on my block is, I mean, people just go straight through 40 miles an hour, straight through down the apartments, around the curve, without even looking, and we can't play out front. So, it's up to our borough residents to really slow down. And, we've had law enforcement they're more than welcome to sit in our driveway, and they pretty much said it's like a sitting duck, or fish in a barrel rather, and I mean, unfortunately, the community doesn't get enough money from the state for, traffic tickets, but I mean, in the same sense, they're willing to do it, but it's not, people think of this town that it's a revenue thing, like if you're, to get the speeding ticket money, it's not. It really isn't, and it's up to the people of this town to slow down. You got to slow down, you got to stop, and, that's pretty much all there is to it. And like I said, the stretch where you're talking at, I can totally understand, but you know what? I mean, it's easy to go 25 miles an hour down that stretch. It seems fast, but that's the speed limit. So, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, if you're in that current stretch, it's just going to seem fast the way it is. But, I mean, it's up to us to, figure this out.
But just like she said, you have some.
It's every street around.
We'll have some
It's
traffic
every
studies.
street. It's
They might
not,
change the
and
speed
we don't have the police enforcement to, monitor every single corner that there is in the town. And I'm not talking about the new people or, whoever, but it's just the way people drive and the way the new cars are, and it's just how it is, so. I mean, I think the first step for that stretch would be to decrease the speed limit.
The speed limit's already set at
And
25.
see,
It doesn't make any difference.
well, I'm just saying, maybe see if that would do something. But, I mean, for that long of a stretch of a street, it's more than 2 blocks of Fayette Street, pretty much, or a block and a half Fayette Street. And that's the same speed limit on the main road. So, that's my point. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more public comment?
You can come forward.
Right there.
Hi, my name is John Williams. I live at 345 West 6th Avenue. I recently moved back to Conshohocken. I grew up here and came back and bought the house I grew up in. And I'm telling you, it's more than, it's Echo Speedway in Englishtown, for those who know racing. And with the parallel parking, today I was working and I had my truck parked across the street. And there's a truck, 150, this high. He's already in the middle of the street. He's parked parallel. I have to walk out into the middle of the street, past him, to get to the other side of the street where my truck's parked. And no one stopped to let me. I had 2x4s, 4x4s, drills in my hand, everything. Back and forth, racing up and down, up and down, up and down. And the 300 block is also the 400 block down at Caldwell. It's not one block, it's 2 blocks. 100 block has a stop sign, 200 block has a stop sign, 3 to 400 to Caldwell, there is no stop sign. They build up the speed, boom. I'm going to the Metroplex, I'm going over here, I'm going to cut down Brook Road, I'm going to go to Home Depot, I'm going to IKEA, I'm going down Caldwell, I'm going up Caldwell. It's nuts. Something's got to be done there or somebody's going to get killed. I mean, nobody will allow you even to get in your car. I got in my car, I had to have my son come out to stand there in the middle of the street and say, okay, Dad, come on, you're good. I'm like, really? I'm good? And then I'm going this way, cars are going this way, the yellow line it's over here somewhere. I'm like, every day, I'm gonna come out to this? Are you kidding me? I pay taxes for this stuff. Something's gotta be done, or somebody's gonna get hurt, or God forbid, killed. It's gonna happen, I'm telling you now, because nobody gives a rat's butt about you. You could have 20 things in your hand. You could have groceries in your hand and a kid in your hand. They're not going to stop for you. They're on their iPad and or whatever they're doing, and they're just having a good old time. It's 2 blocks there. It's not 1. Okay? Just want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Go, right here.
Oh, yes.
Come on, go ahead. Go ahead, you're first, go ahead.
I sure do. Hey, I'm right behind you. Sorry, my name is Adrienne DeFay. I am a registered nurse at Lankenau Medical Center. I've been living here in Conshohocken for 12 years. Met my husband here, married here, have 2 kids here. I currently rent my mother's property. I used to own on West 5th, which is just as speedy as West 6th, but I live on West 6th. Every single morning, my husband makes sure that I'm backing out with my 2 kids safely. Every single morning, he has to walk in the middle of the street by the yellow line and back me up. There are mornings when I've got both the kids in the car, I'm trying to get there, I'm backing out. He's in the street, and people are honking at me, backing out of my own driveway to get to work in the morning, to go to the hospital. This happens every single morning. My kids and I don't play out front. We walk to Sutcliffe Park on a regular basis, and I am nervous when I have the 2 of them with me by myself, walking or riding bikes up to Sutcliffe. It's not safe, and there is no way for me to get to Sutcliffe safely going down toward Caldwell and up that way. So I'm not sure what the answer is, but we need to do something, and I know it is all over Conshohocken. We are a busy place. People cut through here to get to work. It's one of the only places you can cross the bridge. The traffic's crazy. People are all over the place. I'm not sure what the answer is, but we have to do something as a community, or one of our kids, one of our family members are going to get hurt. And it is some of the residents here that do drive fast, but I think a lot of people come through Conchi in the morning and on the way home, and it is, I mean, I look at my Google Maps, it's red everywhere. You know, people are trying to get around as best they can. And 6 is a cut-through. 5th's a cut-through, 6th a cut-through, and it's one of the only ones. So you're coming down, you can cut through 10th, but you're coming up this way, you go 5th or 6th, you know, so, and it is a long stretch. I'm not sure what the answer is, but I just wanted to say, please consider it in the very near future. My kids are little, they go to school here in Conchi, and I want to stay here for a while.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chris Bertino. I live at 448 West 6th Avenue. So I'm at the part of the street that is wider, and there is technically no on-street parking there, but there is on-street parking there because the people across the street don't have anywhere to park their cars. So they're doubled out of their driveways to park there. And, you know, the summer, everybody's speeding through. In the winter, it's very dangerous because it gets snow. The plows fly down our street. Honestly, I have shoveled the hole. My boyfriend has been with the snowblower, cleared us all out to have the plow fly down the street that the entire sidewalk is recovered. So it's not just residents. It's not just out-of-towners. Sometimes it's our borough employees that are flying down the street. It is not just about kids. I am scared half to death from my neighbors who have little kids. I'm grateful I don't have any little kids because I'd be scared half to death for them to play out in my front yard. I have a dog. I'm worried about the dog getting out into the street because there's no shot he's going to make it if he gets hit. I watched my neighbor try to bring in her kids across the street in carriers, you know, and people don't care, they fly. In addition to people flying on the street, people are making U-turns there because it is the widest part of the street. So if they're lost, they go down there and they're turning around right in front of my house. There are people, thanks to Anita, we got the no parking signs put on our side of the street because people would park there. So I can't tell you how many times cars have been hit because they were parked in front of my house that is a no parking zone. My mom had to live with me for a few months because she had a minor stroke, and part of her physical therapy was to have her cross the street. And I told the physical therapist absolutely not, that she would not be crossing West 6th Avenue because it was not safe. And we're talking at least 5 years ago. And the problem has just increased because the number of homes have increased. And if you've been in the borough long enough, you know that West 6th Avenue is one of the few two-way streets that goes all the way to Caldwell, and it has been forever. So while 5th Avenue was opened up to try to relieve traffic off of 6th Avenue,